think this whole thing is wild, really wild. This is kind of a shocking news. And this adds to the conspiracy theories that people had about SBF being a fall guy, the government's possibly, setting this whole thing up to see FTX fail so that they could see the entire crypto sector fail. Remember this guy, Daniel Fredberg? A lot of people said, hey, this guy is no good. He was involved with some online casino or online poker scam where, he was advising people that had God mode, and it was just like, ripping people off left and right. And he was the lead counsel to FTX and Alameda. But, this guy just disappeared off the face of the earth, supposedly. But now it's been reported, no. He's been talking to about 20 U.S. investigators, and he will be standing in as a government witness. He is not going to be charged with anything. Okay? So he's not pleading or anything. He's not like Gary or Caroline that actually made some kind of plea agreement. He's actually just coming in as a witness. So it makes you wonder if this guy was planted in all along because they knew something was going to happen, or he made something happen. We don't know. This is wild. Wild is coming out. So he's going to be a government witness come October. Okay. And he's been sharing details about SBF's use of customer money, how sister trading firm Alameda Research operated, and a whole lot of stuff. So he's been meeting with 20 investigators, including officials from Justice Department, FBI, SEC, and the South District of New York, right? And supposedly, because he was a lawyer, right, he asked FTX to waive his attorney-client privilege. They said no, but he ignored that anyways and still worked with the authorities. Okay, I don't even see how that's legal when they said you can't. Well, I guess in the case of fraud, I guess you can make the case that you can break the attorney-client privilege, but still. But again, from now to October, that's a lot of time, 9 months. I don't know where this is going to go, but this just broke. So kind of weird. All right, next up is Silvergate, which is a large crypto bank. And they are hurting right now, because of the massive amount of withdrawals and because their ties to FTX and Alameda. They had to sell off a ton of assets, and they scrapped whatever they bought from Facebook. Facebook had their Dem project, which is like their own crypto coin, is their stable coin. Facebook took a huge loss. I don't know how many billions they lost. They sold it to Silvergate, who is now writing that off to zero. So they're giving up on that. They're laying off 40% of their personnel, which is around 200 employees, and they're liquidating their debt, and they lost $718 million in the process. So Silvergate is looking really, really bad, but they say they still have enough funds to continue forward, and they will continue to operate, right? But yeah. Crypto contagion is still spreading, so obviously hurting a lot of companies right now. All right, what else is going on? Well, this is very positive, very positive. You have a presidential candidate in Argentina that is recognizing how important Bitcoin is, saying that Bitcoin is a natural reaction to the scam of central banks. He even called central banks scams, right? This is what Bitcoiners believe in. The first thing we have to understand is that central bank is a scam. It's a mechanism by which politicians cheat the good people with inflationary tax. What Bitcoin is representing is a return of money to its original creator, the private sector. And then he goes on, Bitcoin has an algorithm that one day will reach a certain amount where there's no more. And it can compete with other currencies. In fact, it competes with Ethereum and others. And what is a good thing? The return of private money, right? Bitcoin is a natural reaction to the scam of central banks and money returning private sector. And the flip side is that the thieving politicians are not going to allow you to go against legal tender. In economies with high inflation, the scam is bigger. That's why I suggest you can propose to close the central bank. Interesting. Sounds like President Bukele. Sounds like someone that understands that, the world we live in right now, the central banks and the Feds of the world, right? They are not looking out for your best interest. They're looking out for their best interest. They're looking out for the interest of the banks, not the people, even though they're supposed to be. But, even though we're suffering high inflation now, keep in mind, inflation is always there. There's always more printing. 2 to 3% adds up year over year over year, but the last three years, obviously, it has been much worse, right? And the banks, the crooked banks that does something wrong, they get a slap on the wrist and they get bailed out by the central banks, right? In 2009, we would have had, or 2008, we would have had a global catastrophe, a financial meltdown because every single bank over-leveraged, bought too many mortgage-backed securities, and they were all going to go under until the central banks around the world bailed each and every one out, right? Unfortunately, we don't get those kind of bailouts in crypto, but in the financial world, we do. So he gets it. He gets it. Hopefully, he could become president and makes Bitcoin legal tender, or maybe just close the central bank and utilize Bitcoin altogether. So that's also fantastic. And then lastly, just to give you guys some hope about where Bitcoin is going, you can see, according to this logarithmic curve, some of the bottom points that Bitcoin has established over the years. Once they have done, once those bottoms have been established, look at the upside, right? Quite tremendous. And that is what we're waiting for next. And the thing is, the driver of today's redness is actually a good thing, not a bad thing at all. That's because the payroll growth surged. So in the US, in December, we actually had a ton of people finding jobs, and this is good. Normally, you want this. Normally, you want to hear that more people are getting jobs and having work and be able to pay the bills. But Dow Jones' estimate was coming in at 153,000 for December, but the number went up to 235,000. So normally speaking, if we weren't in this weird time, this would be absolutely fantastic. But why this is driving markets down today? Because everyone's fearful that Powell's going to look at this and remain hawkish on his rate hikes. That is the situation we're in right now. I mean, this is fantastic, but not good for markets. It's been like this for over a year now. Whenever we get good economic data shows the strength of the economy, things tank.